Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for another cracking stage of the Tour de France from Agen to Pau. This was wall-to-wall action from start to finish, like literally 4 hours or 3.5 hours actually, because they went so fast, where you could not step away from your TV screen, even though we have 2 Category 4 climbs all day. But it's Healy on big roads, open exposed roads as well, with cross tailwind predicted. Not the strongest, but still enough, 20-25 k's an hour in places, but still no categorized climbs. So the first 120 k's, then some 1600 meter 6% rollers for about 20 k's, and then it's a false flat downhill for the last 10 k's or so to the finish. So it could be a sprint. We thought a breakaway, but then the wind actually, Benji, and a few other things completely turned the stage on its head.
Exactly, but I don't think I will blame the wind for this. I think I'll blame a single individual in this entire peloton for the breakaway not winning today. That's at least my opinion. And to be honest, when it comes to big breakaways, there's one thing that a GC team would fear, and that's a secondary multi-leader strategy where a random GC rider from another team that is not the main GC rider of that team slips in that breakaway and becomes a danger, or at least becomes an imaginary danger, perhaps, in their head. And we get a large breakaway formation action at the start of the stage. Loads of teams want to go in the breakaway, like you already mentioned. And the reasons for that are Alpecin lost half their team. Søren Kragh Andersen is out. Ricard is out. When it comes to other things, Bora maybe wants to go in breakaways because they lost Roglic. He has abandoned before the stage starts. So that's perhaps a factor there. But they actually weren't that active when it comes to break formation. Basically, all the other teams, in my opinion, kind of were. And we get a 21-man group, basically as the proper breakaway that forms. And I feel like that group formed fairly quickly because there's so little teams that don't want to be in the breakaway. Even Alpecin wants to be in the breakaway. That there's limited riders that are just trying to control counterattacks and stuff. There's limited teams doing that.
Yeah.
The only team that is the obvious one missing from this front group, you can go through the names in a second. The only team I look at this and I'm like, ooh, they fucked up, is Jayco.
Jayco missed it, Cofidis missed it, and Decathlon missed it as well. So I think also Arkea B&B Hotels. So, but those teams, the French teams, are not going to chase all out initially. And so, yeah, Jayco start to mount a chase. We see the UAE jersey in there. I'm thinking, oh, it's probably Marc Soler, I'd say. Him and Tratnik would have been controlling breakaway formation. It split behind them in the crosswind, and they just happened to end up in the breakaway. But then suddenly it came out that it was Adam Yates in the breakaway, and this begins a very not the best day for Visma Lease Bike tactically or managing this stage. Begins straight away in break formation. UAE catch them napping. They rarely do this. They've not really done this before. This is actually what Visma have tried to do. It's what Hindley did last year. And they get Yates in the break. He's on like 7 minutes in GC, which isn't a disaster. It's not a disaster. It's not really their problem initially. But if the break goes straight away, it's more Benji who he's with. Because that's the worrying part, is that if this break gets out of control in the crosswinds, maybe he does start to take a lot of time.
Exactly. And I'm looking through this group and I feel like, okay, if it's 4 riders with Adam Yates, okay, nobody cares. They're going to wave back to the peloton eventually. It's a 21-man group. And including in there, we've got De Lee with a teammate, Van Moer. So Van Moer is going to keep trucking in that breakaway. Ballerine is in there. Astana is okay with this breakaway, despite having Cavendish behind maybe. So maybe with 2 things in mind. Mohoric in there. He's got Bauhaus behind, but I think Mohoric will work with the breakaway. Marijn van den Berg is there with Costa and Paulus, and I feel like Paulus did quite a bit to keep that initially going, this breakaway. Lascano is in there. We've got Magnus Cort Nielsen together with teammate Jonas Abrahamsen, so two rouleur boys from the Norwegian lands and the Danish lands. Then we've got Laurens and Van der Poel, so 2 boys from Alpecin, so they clearly are set on a breakaway as well. Jan Tratnik is in there, Kevin Gignac, Hugo Ull. We've got Hoel together with Fulsang, so 2 riders there as well. Bernard together with Squints, so also 2 riders there. Van den Broek is in there as well. And did I mention Gregoire already? If not, he's in there together with, of course, Adam Yates. So 21 riders, including Adam Yates for UAE and Tratnik for Visma. And whenever a move like this happens, we saw it with Sepp Kuss in the Chavalambre stage last year at the Vuelta, for example. We saw it with Hindley on stage 5 last year, where such a secondary GC leader is in the breakaway, the other GC teams are the ones you're watching in the peloton. How is Visma going to react? Because on one end, they might not want Adam Yates to get closer in GC for UAE to be able to play out a multi-leader strategy. But on the other end, how is Quickstep going to react? Or Ineos, the riders that are around, or before Adam Yates in GC at least, do they want Adam Yates to become a danger for their GC rider? And we see quite a bit of reactions, but the first reaction was clearly not a GC team. It was the entire team of Jaco Alula coming to the front and smashing it in the peloton, trying to keep the gap around half a minute. But sorry, but there's 21 riders up the road. There's not a single team trying to control the breakaway formation. The fact that Jaco Alula missed that breakaway is criminal, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like they wanted to just control for a sprint today, but they're the only team that wanted to control for a sprint. Even Astana probably. I think Astana jumped with Ballerini.
Yeah,
like it's easier just to be in there than to try control 20 teams jumping. So maybe they just missed it, but I would say generally speaking, they're not always on the front foot. Like with Mezgets, if you jump with Mezgets and you get in the break, happy days. He's got a chance of winning. He's got a decent kick and he's a good classics rider. So they start pulling full. Visma start helping with Kelderman. They're relaying a little bit. The gap starts to go to 30, 40. There's not really panic. There shouldn't be panic yet for Visma. And suddenly, and then it gets to maybe 40 seconds. It looks like it's stabilizing. And then Ineos put Turner and Quickstep put Lampard or Moscon. I can't remember. So now you have the two teams chasing and you can maybe keep a Lemon up there. And I'm thinking, this is now, Benji, not the worst situation for Visma. It's a bad situation for Ineos because Yates is on 7 minutes to Pogačar. He's on 6 minutes to Vingegaard. He's on much, much less to Carlos Rodriguez. As of yesterday, he was, can I count? 2 minutes 29 behind Carlos Rodriguez. That's a TT and one mountain stage away. No, sorry. That's this stage away. In theory, you can't. If Yates goes level with Rodriguez, he podiumed the race last year. Then suddenly the podium is a lot more difficult for Rodriguez. Evenepoel as well. They start to pull Quickstep. If you're Vingegaard, my theory is if Yates draws level with Vingegaard today, and Vingegaard loses to Yates, well then he's not beating Pogačar anyway. So okay, you don't want to give him 7 minutes, but I didn't ever see it going to 15 minutes, Benji, because Ineos Quicks, they will put the whole team.
Exactly, and I did feel like Visma overreacted a bit in the first phase. They've got this phase going towards the first exposed wind zone. There were 3 zones in today's stage where I felt like, okay, that could be a dangerous spot somewhere early on in the stage, and then also with about 60 kilometers to go in the stage. We had 3 zones like that where I felt like, okay, maybe the crosswinds will be high enough for an actual split to occur because they go through an exposed zone just after a bit of a twist in course that might lead to the peloton being lined out. And we're heading towards that fast crosswind zone or potential crosswind zone. And I felt like Visma was doing quite a bit of pacing just as much as Jaco at a certain point before that crosswind zone. And then suddenly Wout van Aert comes to the front and he absolutely smashes it through this crosswind zone. And sorry, from a viewership perspective, this is pure cyclismo. This is amazing to see. Visma basically doing an echelon team attack with 4 riders and Vingegaard. And then in addition to that, we've got Pogačar, Almeida pretty quickly on the wheel. Kampenaer's there as well. Steven Williams, I'm pretty sure, and Pascal Ackermann. And then Remco had missed it. But then we see from the helicopter shot that Remco Evenepoel bridging from the group behind a gap of like, if I had to guess, 20 meters roughly to that group with Vingegaard and the 4 domestiques of him, Jorgensen, Benoit, Van Aert, and Laporte. And he just bridges that. That was super impressive. But the question is this a smart strategy?
No, this was not a good idea. First of all, let's say be charitable and it's not panic reacting to Yates. Let's say it's actually an aggressive move in crosswinds to drop Pogačar. Okay. You do gap him. You then what? You have to ride 150 Ks with 4 riders against all of, say, Quickstep, UAE, Ineos, the whole peloton. And it also goes tailwind soon. And you get to the breakaway, no one will help you. And okay, there's Tratnik ahead. And so Tratnik, and then so but then Pogačar makes it.
Yeah.
He makes it. So then you've not dropped Pogačar or Remco, he's just sitting in. You're now 15 seconds ahead of Ineos and Quickstep, who were chasing, helping you chase. The Yates problem, who wasn't your problem, but now is your problem. Then, with Pogačar there, they keep relaying, including Vingegaard, not getting closer, but they're 40 seconds to the break. You're not getting across the 20 rouleurs. Yeah. And Wout wasn't pulling again.
Chaspatat.
So they Chaspatat, and then Tratnik drops out of the break, pulls a little bit, but they've already decided to stop. And so Ineos then had to go full with more riders to chase the Pogačar group. And I was thinking now, if you're Ineos, I'd say, fuck you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have pulled. I mean, that shoots yourself in the foot, but or you've gassed their rouleurs. And they're gassed chasing you instead of just rolling through like it was before. So that move made it actually more likely that the group with Yates and Van der Poel ahead could actually take big time because it was a stable situation before.
And shockingly, those teams that worked with Visma before they made that move actually still worked with Visma afterwards. So they didn't have that emotional reaction that I or you would have had of like, fuck off, I'm not pacing with you anymore. They looked into their bosom and they said, okay, we've got the problem of Adam Yates still up there. We rationally have to take care of that problem and not think about what Visma just tried, and they keep relaying. And that's what Ineos does. That's what Quickstep also does. And we also see Jayco still helping there. And obviously Visma Lab is also now pacing in the peloton again because that has come back together. And in addition to that, Arkea and Decathlon also start pacing. Decathlon for Bennett Sprint, I'm guessing, Arkea for Demar. So we've actually got quite a bit of teams now that are doing the chasing in the peloton behind the front group. And to be clear, the gap went from 40 seconds to a minute and 10 seconds maybe once Visma was caught by the peloton again. But after that, the gap actually started gradually lowering from 120 to a minute 05 to 59 seconds to 52 seconds, 50 seconds. And to be honest, during this entire first segment of the race, the breakaway is also pissed at Adam Yates.
Yeah.
Because that man
they're bitching at him.
Man. That is the man that is ruining their breakaway opportunity right now. Adam Yates is the most hated most hated person on the planet in that peloton.
No, he has aura. He's planet aura. He has his own gravitational pull because Yates has aura. I don't know why they were complaining so much. It's Crosswind's rolling hills. It's 20. There's Israel got numbers with Fulsang and whoever. Alpecin got numbers. Lotto got numbers. EF got numbers. Trek got numbers. Attack him. X got numbers. Attack him. Like, it's not that complicated. He's a 58 kilogram climber. I know he's good in crosswinds, but stop complaining. Attack him.
I'm okay with the complaining, actually. If it works, it works. If
he doesn't care.
Koshta was talking to him, and Adam Yates just looked forward and didn't respond. Like, he didn't care, but I do think they should always try the bullying. No, it's weird to say that. Bullying is bad, but bullying a rider out of a breakaway is a strategy in cycling, and that's what these other breakaway riders were trying to do. They were trying to tell Yates, mate, your fucking is over, go back to the peloton where you belong. And that's
they should have Fuga de la Fuga'd way earlier. Because at 60 Ks, they go through a village and then it goes cross tailwind. And so before then, the GC teams, they're going to speed up at 75 to get in position. And then at 60, it's going to be absolutely full gas. So you have to Fuga earlier to get rid of Yates. That being said, from Visma's perspective, it's no longer their problem. Ineos actually, I think, had to spend the most. Like Turner and G really had to pull. Quickstep really had to pull with Lampard, but also for UAE, they were no longer actually getting any advantage because you got Yates trying to mark eventually Fugas from classics riders on this terrain.
What's a Fuga, to be clear?
A Fuga de la Fuga is a escape from the escape, a breakaway from the break. Guys countering to get ahead of the break. Yeah. And Yates is trying to sew them up together later, and it's like the gap stabilized at 1 minute, 7 teams are relaying behind. If Yates isn't expending too much energy, it doesn't matter. But at that point, it was actually neutral. No one was really getting any advantage. Maybe Ineos losing a bit. lemon being used from Visma, he ain't making Crosswind split anyway. So in the end, it was kind of neutral, although you couldn't look away. You couldn't look away. And it kind of, I'm just surprised when it was at 60 seconds, it took so long, Benji, for someone else to jump from the break.
And eventually that did come, which was Magnus Kort, Gregoire, Bernard, and Kwiatkowski. So the hashtag Free Kwiato is alive. That was good to see. And yeah, that is to try and get rid of Yates in that. And I think that's the main objective of those moves. But 4 riders, it's also kind of not enough, eh? So you got those 4 riders going on the front and then...
EF. All that complaining at Yates, you have 3 riders and you missed the most predictable Fuga ever.
That's, I agree with you. That's a bit of a failure on EF's part for sure.
Alpecin don't need to overinvest here because they still, at this point, Philipsen can still win the sprint from a bunch. So I understood when Alpecin weren't like full gas chasing the Fuga. Same with Israel, to be honest. They got Ackerman and he keeps getting good results. It was EF and to be honest, I think Lotto Benji missed a trick here as well. And because the Fuga goes, the remaining breakaway keeps chasing him for so long with Yates, it never gets the opportunity to get any gap. Because it would have, if they got caught 15 Ks earlier, the Yates group, the Kwiatkowski group has a really good chance of going far, but that doesn't happen, Benji, because the GC teams start pulling and the crosswinds begin.
So far in the race, just action from start to this point, and now we enter this like small middle phase, but it actually isn't that long of a rest phase because we just have the situation of those 4 riders up the road and the rest eventually getting eaten up by the peloton. I do think Adam Yates stayed maybe a bit too long in that move because from UAE's perspective, I think he started spending quite a bit of energy reacting to the people trying to get away from that group 2 as well. And maybe pulling him out there also relaxes the race a little bit. And maybe that's also something that UAE wants in the long run. But hey, that aside, we're now closing in towards let's say the 60-kilometer mark of the race. There's this, I think, bend to the left, which opens a open area of the course with crosswinds in that area. And that was an indicative point where echelons could occur. And we do see the most important GC teams coming to the front before that. We see the likes of UAE coming to the front, Visma coming to the front. Remco is in a good position relatively with his team as well there. The most important GC teams were in a good position going into that bend, and Visma first pushes it, then UAE starts rolling around with them, and instantly we have gaps. Splits all over the road. We've got, I think, 3 major groups is how I'd classify it. First group, the majority of the GC riders, the majority of the sprinters. Group 2, I'd say Adam Yates and Felix Gall, and maybe Bennett as well. Group 3, Cavendish, Gaviria, and Van der Poel.
Yeah. And Groenewegen maybe somewhere in the middle of group 2 and 3. I'm not sure.
I think he was still in group 1, actually. I think he dropped during the hill phase later. Okay.
And so really, everyone knew it was coming. Everybody knew. Pogacar's there with teammates. Everyone's there kind of with teammates. Ineos got Kwiatkowski ahead as well. All the sprinters make it, except for Cav, like Dali, like Philipsen, Binny, Van Aert. And so it gets to the point where there's no... They ride through the 10Ks of crosswinds. Everyone rolls through just to be careful. Poggy accelerates a couple of times with Evenepoel and almost creates a mini split. Vingegaard makes it, but then everyone kind of realizes there's no advantage being gained here, especially when it goes to tailwind. So Israel pull a bit because Derek G could move into top 10 over Yates, but they stop. Or not stop, they're just not enough to keep the group behind. So actually it merges back again, but still a huge effort. If you were in G2, I guess Felix Gall missing that split was like a 100% chance, but he comes back anyway. And so we get into this hill zone with a very, very tired peloton, which we should not be surprised by at this point. And so... Yeah, what did you expect in this phase, Benji? It's not as easy to control then after 2 hours of it kicking off.
Exactly, because the riders in the peloton are tired. The domestiques are tired in the peloton, so there's limited riders really to control the phase that is coming, and we're entering the Côte de Blachon. I think the fast climb is of the of the few in the last 40 kilometers. And I was thinking, okay, who's going to attack in this phase? X probably, because we see Christoph struggling at the back. So I'm guessing Magnus Kort might go for an attack. Abrahamsen might go for an attack. That's what we see together with Lotto as well. They do have the Lee in the peloton, but they choose to attack with, I don't know specifically, I think for the Hells went with together with Brent van Moer at a certain point during this phase. And then EF also with Healy, also attacked on one of the hills. And what's notable to me is that Visma is trying to control from the peloton. And they are the main team doing it in this first part of the hill zone. And I'm thinking, okay, why is this? To me, controlling on the climbs is definitely not to keep Jonas Vingegaard safe. That is controlling into the descents, staying safe. Jorgensen was actively reacting to groups going up the road, and Wilco Kelderman as well. So to me, this was clear. Visma was trying to keep the group relatively together and control attacks for Wout van Aert. And from my perspective, that is quite a bit of energy spendage already on top of the energy that's already spent throughout the stage for Wout van Aert. Well, there's 2 major mountain stages coming the next 2 days.
And Philipsen's in the group, and Binny's in the group. This is not like he's sprinting and in the Highescabel against Pogacar and Pidcock.
Yeah.
There's the quickest man. Philipsen's still the quickest man in the race, in my opinion. Philipsen yesterday, from the big group, sprinted from a mile away, so that's why he didn't win. That doesn't mean he's not the quickest. When he actually got a decent position on the stage he won, he rinsed everybody. And so now you're coming into a group, say it does go to a sprint, with 20 guys really in the mix and space for Philipsen, like he will win or should win. He is the quickest in the group. And then Binny's also, I don't think actually Binny's as quick as Van Aert. But that being quick is not 100% of sprinting. Anyway, I'm just saying that going for the sprint is also not like a lock to be won either. Even if you get there, which is what you're sort of saying, is that it's not even easy to get there in this hill zone. There's attacks flying everywhere.
Exactly, and that's why I'm also thinking, like, if you do want to try to go for the stage, we've got these hills coming, and yes, at a certain point, Israel starts to help a little bit, and I think up the road goes a group of 2 riders, which was an EF rider, which was, who was the EF rider? Johannessen with... Carapaz, yes. Those 2 go up the road, and it was Visma together with Israel, I think, pacing, and eventually Lotto is the one that starts hard pacing with Kampenaerts and Van Gils on a certain hill with a lean like P3 in the wind. That was a bit too much in my opinion. I also don't know why they had to close that 2-man attack so quickly, because
I thought it was setting up an attack.
I don't know. For me...
Because it was so violent, the pull.
Yeah, for me, it looked like they were just trying to control those 2 riders, and if you're going for the lead, you'd want to extend that, in my opinion. But maybe it was to control that group and then launch again and be in the other attack. By the way, meanwhile, Groenewegen got dropped in one of the hills we just had and is trying to fight for his dear life with 2 teammates. He's gone. Christoph as well, gone. So some sprinters gone again. And in the last 2 hills, 23 roughly kilometers to go, we get that new attack after Lotto neutralized Carapaz and the other guy, Johannessen. Jesus Christ, those 2 riders not in my head right now.
Former enemy, yeah.
Jasper Stuyven attacks together with... at first I thought Turgy, but it was Grelier actually, together with Brent van Moer. So Van Moer looked like he had initial trouble to try and close down the 2 riders. And Visma and Israel are controlling behind. And I think this is a great move by Stuyven. Yes. I think Grelier being there, great. Van Moer being there, I'm okay with that move. Even though Deli is in that group, he has shown that he has trouble positioning in sprint. So you might as well try it differently, even though Van Moer's probably not going to beat Stuyven in a 2-up sprint, but you never know. Why does Visma choose to respond to all these moves by pacing behind and not by perhaps jumping in a move with Laporte?
Because they're trying to win the sprint with Van Aert. They're not the safest thing to do, and the highest chance to win the stage is Laporte or Van Aert to jump with these moves. Stuyven will pull with Van Aert. He's too scared of the Sportser comments. He will pull. And then the peloton behind, it will chase, but eventually if they really get a gap and all the teams are represented, it will calm down significantly. Then the run-in will be a lot safer and less hectic, which it is technical to run in. So that's better for Vingegaard. And then you don't have to chase. So the best strategy was that, But Wout had to win today.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Laporte, when he eventually, because when Lotto start jumping, then they're really creating problems for the other teams. Because then if Lotto aren't helping you close moves, and there's jumping, you are eventually going to miss one. And eventually Laporte goes with Bergado on the wheel, gets across to Sturven, and then he goes with some other moves. They use him as a defensive blocker. And I'm thinking, if Laporte goes with Aldi Alaphilippe, Sturven, or whoever, he's gonna win the sprint easy. Yeah. And Lotto are represented, Trek are represented. Okay, maybe Ugo will chase you a bit, but you're probably going to go to the line. And Laporte doesn't pull.
Yeah, in my opinion, the strategy, like you mentioned, looked 100% like Visma had to 100% win with Wout van Aert. And it wasn't okay for Laporte to win today's stage because Laporte had a much better chance from that group of 4 than Wout van Aert had from the peloton, in my opinion.
And Laporte's doing this, so he's jumping with these moves, which cost energy, and then he has to do the lead out after.
Yeah.
So I don't think he was too cooked to relay with these guys.
No.
Because if you see the lead out after. So anyway, it gets closed down. You do have to say Visma were quite strong with Bernard and Jorgensen, but Vingegaard's navigating better than Galibier, but Vingegaard's navigating this whole final, most of it on his own. Yeah. Poggi also uses Van Aert when he sees the big classics guys jumping, trying to get in a split. Poggi's sensing opportunities maybe. So Vingegaard's navigating a lot of this on his own. Anyway, it gets stuck together. UAE come to the front to bring Poggi under the 3Ks to go, at least we thought, banner to safely with Pollitt and Wellens. Wellens lets Abrahamsen's wheel go under the 4K to go banner. And Abrahamsen's going clear. Lotto start chasing, and we will have a sprint. We are going to have a sprint. Pogačar, though, doesn't pull off. He stays with the sprinters, which it was a little bit risky, I thought. But anyway, it looks like he's going to go for the sprint. Laporte's bringing Van Aert up on the right-hand side. Intermarché, who've not had to really do anything all day, they tried to position Binny through a big left-hander, and they get there first. Lotto are actually quite deep with De Lee. Philipsen is kind of anonymous, which was good for him. He was just sort of P10, P12 doing it himself.
Yep, that's very true. Now, I do feel like the last 2 kilometers in this race, I was starting to wonder. So many domestiques are being spent. Visma is one of the teams controlling, but they're spending domestiques doing so. Israel is spending domestiques. Lotto's been spending Kampenaerts, Van Gils throughout this entire race, Brent Van Moer. The only team that has not spent a single dime this entire race is Intermarché. They've got 4 domestiques for Binyam, and they've done nothing all day. Nothing all day. They've been in the splits. They've been working to be in the position they are, but they spent no energy more than necessary to be there, which was strategically because they were okay with having the breakaway win so that the green jersey advantage of Binyam would be relatively secure. But I'm still also thinking, well, is a late attack not possible here? Because with so many attacks going, still into the last 10 kilometers, why don't we see more like last kilometer attacks and so forth? And then we get to the last, I think, 3-4 kilometers. UAE's on the left side, Intermarché next to that with Binyam, then Lotto next to Arkea. I'm thinking, okay, is there going to be a late attack? I was hoping. It's unrealistic to hope this, but imagine a Remco Evenepoel last 3-kilometer attack on stage like this. Like, that would be secure.
Because Abrahamsen, they barely closed him down, and then Lotto's lead out was done, and Laporte's being held for. And that's why, this is like if you remember stage 19 of the 2022 Tour de France, this is where a finesse attack can really win when there's basically no lead outs left. But anyway, that's not the case. Intermarché kind of do lock it down, go through the big sweeping left-hander. Is it Turnison? And then Intermarché is still on the front. It's Laporte second wheel, Van Aert third wheel, and then Arkea. It must be who was it? Demar.
I think so.
The Arkea sprinter.
Demar.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Anyway, on the left-hand side, Capio pulls out of the train. Third wheel before that left-hand bend. He looks back left, pulls out initially, which is fine, whatever. That's sort of normal. Drifts left. Then he's sort of there's enough space to his left to the barriers for a rider to move through. There's enough space to his right for a barrier to move through to the pocket, to the hip of Van Aert. Then he looks over his right shoulder again to the sprinters. And whilst he had pulled off, he looked back and he saw Van Gils was coming. And yeah, he drifts into Van Gils again towards the barriers. Van Gils is coming up with huge speed, trying to bring up De Lee. Somehow De Lee, and yeah, Van Gils braces himself, shoulder checks Capio, who is sort of drifting into him. And somehow, and then, yeah, I don't know if it's Ballerini, an Astana rider crashes over Capio, who absolutely decked it. De Lee, I don't know how he held it up. And there's a huge crash. Van Gils slips through. I think this is 99% Capio's fault. Because, first of all, they've been told when you finish your lead out, Renshaw said this yesterday, when you finish your lead out, don't stop pedaling. Secondly, he looks over his shoulder, not once, but twice. He moves once, middle, and there's space either side. When he moves over, he is also, I think, cognizant of the fact that he's trying to impede Van Gils coming up in the first place. Then he looks a second time and drifts again left towards the barriers. And Van Gils is committed. He's committed at this point. When Capio moves a second time, Van Gils had already decided to shoot the gap that did exist.
Yeah.
And he braces, leans in. It looks aggressive, but honestly, if he doesn't and Capio keeps moving, which he looked like he was, then he's getting put into the barriers. So I think it's Capio's fault.
Like, for me, the situation is being sketched in a very simple way. You've got Capio coming off as lead out, and he goes backwards. As I always say, as you always say, as everybody should always say, if you've done your lead out, don't look around, because if you look to the right, you will naturally drift to the left. If you look to the left, you will naturally drift to the right. We've seen that so many times. Warneskjold caused the crash on the Nogaro, whatever it's called, course on stage 4, I think, last year in the Tour de France in similar fashion. We've seen loads of crashes by looking aside and naturally moving the opposite direction. Van Gils moving up on the left side by the barriers. At first, the first time I saw it, I thought, okay, Van Gils just shoulder checked Capio into the floor. That's the first thing you see when you watch it the first time. But then you look at a few more times, and I also would lean towards it being Capio's fault, because the gap is there. There is a lane for Van Gils to move through, and it's Capio looking next to him, looking behind him, whatever, that makes him move left again, which causes them to clash in the first place. Now, nobody in the situation did anything on purpose, in my opinion. Yes, Van Gils came up with speed, but it's logical. He's trying to bring the lead to the front. So you can't expect him to not go for an obvious gap that is there at that point, just because he has to imagine that Capio will move left 0. whatever seconds before he goes through that gap. Yeah, for me, that's Capio's fault.
If Capio rides in a straight line after he initially moves off and looks straight ahead and keeps his hands properly on his handlebars, there's no problem, which is what he's supposed to do. And if you say that Van Gils, why is he moving up so aggressively, then you're saying, well, no one's allowed to do their own lead out on a different lane during a sprint. Yeah. So, yeah, it's...
But to be clear, I've got no clue what rule applies here in the first place.
Fucking pay attention. Switch on.
Pay attention rule.
I guess crashing is punishment enough, I would say, for Capio. Anyway, in the sprint, they go through a left-hand bend. Laporte is on the front. He's looking around, but there's no other lead-outs. Laporte's then on the front too early. We're looking at the banners. 250 meters to go is a long way away still, and he stops his lead-out. Van Aert moves to the front, stops, and Philipsen jumps from behind. Van Aert gets into his wheel on the barriers, but Philipsen is just too quick. Van Aert's only able to make up ground in the last maybe 25 meters, and Philipsen, he sprinted strongly out of the saddle all the way to the line. Very, very impressive sprint, and he wins this stage comfortably ahead of Van Aert. And then Pascal Ackermann, another good position, third. Bini fourth. Nikias Arndt fifth. Sturven sixth. Clement Rousseau seventh. Coquard eighth. Pogacar ninth. He fully went for the sprint. I think a bit risky, frankly, because the prospect of bonies really were not there. Maybe he was hoping for a split. Varnish got 10th, and everyone gets put on the same time due to the crashes of GC relevance. Let's say no. Am I missing somebody?
I don't think so.
Did someone lose everything today?
Well, Roglic this morning.
Roglic abandoned this morning. Yeah, we should probably talk about that. I was like, why has people moved up 2 spots? That doesn't make sense to me. So in terms of GC, yes, Roglic abandoned this morning, which was not surprising when we could see that his train really couldn't pace too much yesterday. So that's very unfortunate. He was obviously right in the battle for the podium against Evenepoel. And Ayuso abandoned during the stage. I believe AS, Spanish press, said he has COVID positive.
Correct. And before the stage, he said, I'm fine. And then he wasn't fine. So he's out of COVID.
Said he was asymptomatic, but he got dropped in brake formation on the little rollers, so he clearly wasn't going so well. So that's a shame for him. But no one else loses time. All the GC guys just move up by default by surviving, frankly. It's still a group of 75 guys, 77 guys at the finish, more or less.
Do we speak about the amount of fighting Pogacar did in the last 2 kilometers to try and sprint in the stage?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like if that crash ricochets, he's right next to it.
Whew.
He's right next to it, leaving no braking room shoulder to shoulder. I can understand, like, the sprint on stage 1. That's a really reduced group, you know? Like, he's next to Van Aert for 4th.
Yeah.
If there was no breakaway of Bardet and Frank Vandenbroek, he takes 6 seconds. Like, that's different. But this really, like, has sprinters here. The chance of coming top 3 is 0. So, to me, the risk... And it wasn't like he was trying to follow for a split, right? He was really fighting for position.
Yeah, he was. And then he lost loads of positions in the final bend, and that put him into a position way too far, and then he still came back a bit, then he tried to get past people again. He was fighting for positions in the actual sprint is what it looked like for me. It's interesting. It's like UAE and Visma both spent quite a lot of energy today. And Adam Yates being in that breakaway, I think that's a great move. From the start of the stage, I think that's brilliant to do. Maybe he stayed there a little too long, but it did put Visma in a position where they spent quite a bit of energy trying to get that situation fixed. And I also think that Visma spent way too much energy in the last part of the stage.
Yep.
Do I think that's going to influence the next 2 stages? I don't know.
Including Vingegaard.
Yeah.
Like, Vingegaard's having to shut his own gaps. He's having to look after himself. Pogacar's jumping ahead. He's moving himself up in the wind. And that's just making it through unscathed. There's also crashes in these finales. And and he was not, the last 2 days, Benji, in the sprint, it was not Visma at the front with 4Ks, 3Ks to go. It was UAE with Pogacar both days.
Correct.
So,
True.
You know, you can say, oh, well, Broe were out of position and that caused Roglic a tour yesterday. But also, like, Vingegaard's not been in position in the pointy end of these sprints the last 2 days either, from a safety perspective. So, we'll see. And we got a big mountain stage tomorrow. In the end, nothing happens in this stage. There's no GC gaps. No one crashes. But damn, it was exciting and a wall-to-wall action this stage.
That's for sure. And
yeah.
Not about this stage. I've got nothing left when it comes to this stage, but I'm very curious what's going to happen tomorrow, because tomorrow is I classify tomorrow as a proper mountain stage. Yes, it's only 152 kilometers, but I think there's a pretty good climb in there, because the first roughly, let's say 70 kilometers is basically flat towards the intermediate sprint. And then we start the Col de Tourmalet. We've got 18.9 kilometers at 7.4%. This is called the Souvenir Jacques Godet, but I don't actually think you get any extra points on this. That prize is only given to one of the more known climbs, and maybe that's a financial prize for the guy that comes on top first, I think, but I don't think it doubles your KOM points. That's only on the Cime de la Monette next week. After that climb, we've got the descent, obviously, but then we go into the Orquette d'Ancison. That is 8.3 kilometers, 5%. The last 2K are the hardest, I would say, of this climb, but a bit of a descent before those last 2.8 kilometers. This climb's easy. This is a roller climb. This is actually a bit of a satellite rider climb, if you really would like to open things early, but I'm not sure that will happen tomorrow. And the final climb is Pla d'Arrêt, which it says to be 10.6 kilometers at 8%. And when you look at the climb on the big profile of the stage, you're like, looks kind of easy, but the first 7 kilometers are really hard. 9.3 the first kilometer in percent, 10.9 the next, 8.5, 12, 9.2, 7, 11.2. It's the last 3.5 kilometers that are easier, right?
Yeah, there's literally a flat kilometer in here. So after the 11% kilometer with 7Ks in, with 3.6Ks to go, there's a kilometer of literally false flat downhill. And then, and
My
I don't,
favorite climb.
yeah, well, it's a fake news climb. And I don't know if that's, it might be not literally false flat downhill. It might be the kilometers averaged out like that. But then the next kilometer is 8.5%. And then 6% and 4.3%. So the last mile, Benji averages 5%.
Get out of
here. So it's
how many feet is that?
I don't know. I don't know what feet is.
How many cheeseburgers is that?
I think there's like 4 cheeseburgers to a foot, I would say.
And how many feet are in a mile?
1,000? Nah, more. I have no idea.
It's so much more.
I only know how many meters a mile is. This looks like the quintessential Rogler Stomp teleport, like a 500-meter sprint, 250-meter sprint stage, because that's in theory, right? That's in theory, because it really is not hard the last 3.5 kilometers, so 10 minutes, let's say. The last 10 minutes are not hard, but the first 7Ks are damn hard.
Yeah.
So I would also, this stage also has 4,000 meters of climbing, but I would say it's actually not that hard before either. It's hard, but not like Col de la Lowe's hard or stage 15 hard. The middle climb is, 8Ks 5% with a descent in there. So it's not like they do another HC climb after Tourmalet. I think it's a very good stage for Pogacar. But then, so I don't know what... Normally, Benji, I would expect UAE to do a big lead out, and then on Plada Day, Pogacar goes on the with like on the 11% kilometer.
Yeah,
that's what I'd normally
about 5
expect.
to go.
Or less. Yeah, maybe 4. 4Ks to go or so. That's what I would expect, and then he's going mano against Vingegaard.
How much does losing Ayuso affect their mountain terrain?
Not much.
Based on what we've seen, not much.
Dude, when Micah had COVID, it made him faster. On Grenoble, he was flying.
Ayuso podium to Vuelta with COVID, so...
It's true. COVID is like...
given it time.
Everyone forgets about it, and of course society has to move on, but... It's still a respiratory illness that affects athletes trying to perform in a 3-week Grand Tour.
Yeah.
Like, you can't deny that. So now all the teams are like, oh, shit, we should wear face masks or take precautions once again. But after today, Benji, I think UAE are thinking a little bit differently to like how they conventionally ride, don't you think? Like, would it surprise you to see them go crazy on Tourmalet?
Ooh. So, just to keep in thought, I don't know what UAE thinks right now.
Me either. I don't have a good handle on what they're doing.
Because I somewhat feel like they've made every GC stage that they want to do something on as hard as possible before Pogacar launches. Which, based on last year and the years before, we'd say that benefits Vingegaard. Like, for example, by making it a 1v1 effort on Pertus, for example, a few days ago. If UAE does a full-on lead-out on Tourmalet, tries to hard pace on Dansizon with Sivakov as well, and then we get Almeida and Yates on Plaladet to make it as hard as possible, then I think that brings Vingegaard closer to Pogacar, because Pogacar might be a little less explosive as a consequence. But isn't that maybe Visma's plan is, I think Visma should actually look at this stage and see what UAE does. Because if UAE starts spacing for you, you don't have to make the race hard yourself. They might be doing it for you.
And also, like, it's not so hard that you would say, for sure Vingegaard can drop Pogacar here. It's a 30-minute finishing climb with a soft finish, and Orquet d'Anzizan is not so hard beforehand. And you're right, Benji. Like, if Pogacar goes early, say on Tourmalet, and gets a gap, doesn't he then have to do a 1.5 hour TT across 2 climbs against Vingegaard?
First of all, I don't expect that to happen. But second of all, if he gets a gap on Tourmalet, how many eagles is that gap?
I don't know. There are eagles in the Pyrenees, actually. A lot of bird life in the Pyrenees. I could tell you vultures.
We're taking this too far.
Because, yeah, the descent off Tourmalet is 17 kilometers. Because the thing
this is a last climb stage, in my opinion.
You think?
Yeah.
Because, like, UAE have been... It's strange, Benji, because they both have kept Yates and Almeida in GC, but not really enough for them to be threats. If Yates jumps on Orchid Donzizon tomorrow, why would Vingegaard care? Or
Don't
even
care.
on Tourmalet or Almeida.
Yeah.
Like, it's Remco's problem or Ineos' problem.
And they've shown they will pace today.
Yeah. But yet they have still kept them in GC, like for something like today, and not fully like used them either. It's strange. It's like halfway in between the two strategies. So I don't know how they'll use them tomorrow. From what I've heard, they'll keep being aggressive, is what Machin says. Maybe you're right. They just set up a Pogačar stomp on Plat Day.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this is a last climb stage, that this won't be the stage with minutes of difference between the riders. And for the sake of the race, I hope that Pogačar wins this in a sprint against Vingegaard on top of Plat Day. Because that would show that Pogačar's not... Because like Pogačar on Tuesday, on Pertus and so forth, was still very strong, but compared to what Vingegaard did there, Vingegaard was super impressive, and I fear for Pogačar for the major mountains now. So I'd like him to be on same level on a stage like this, so that we see those major mountains maybe have a little bit of benefit for Vingegaard in for example, the day after, Plateau de Bay and so forth, which could then lead to Vingegaard gradually starting to stomp back gaps on the real, like 5,000 altitude meter stages. And then it's closer together towards the last week, and then it gets decided in the time trial. That's my preferred scenario. So I want them to be close on this stage, and this stage should not be a decisive one.
If Vingegaard drops Pogačar on this stage, then it's all over.
Yeah, then I'm worried. That's what I'm hoping he doesn't, for the sake of the race.
I think Pogačar wins the stage as well. There is 70 k's of valley beforehand to manage, but if you get Soler to start pacing Tourmalet, you'll bring in most breakaways pretty quickly. It's also a flat start, so someone like Felix Gall trying to get in the break to move up GC positions, going to be hard. So I don't really see a break winning.
Yeah, but who's he going to control?
UAE.
Are they going to do that again after
What's
2
Niels
days ago
Pollard?
losing the stage to Vingegaard?
Yeah, they're confident. Benji, Pogačar's never lost a stage because he wasn't the best. That's what they say. So why wouldn't you go?
Sorry, he never lost the stage because he wasn't the best.
He lost because Roglic helped Vingegaard on the descent. That's what he's... Or he missed a gel, or he had a wrist injury. Like, so they'll go for it. For sure.
I think it's not impossible that a break takes this, too.
You reckon? But geez,
it's short. It's 150k.
Jayco would have to help Harper and Yates get in with their rouleurs. They should.
Yeah.
They really should. And I would, if you're Decathlon or Israel, you got to help G and Gul get in this breakaway, or Bahrain help Santi get in, because it's a flat start and this is Tug Buddy. This is where Tug Buddies earn their paycheck before Tourmalet.
Who is a potential breakaway candidate if it does go to the breakaway? I'm looking at Bora, maybe.
Nah.
Well, what's the point of Hindley still being in this race if he doesn't try to get in the break with a Tug Buddy?
Even if he gets in, he'll lose.
Okay. I was hopeful for them. Okay, I want them to avenge Roglic's defeat.
Gol put 7 minutes into him on the Puy-Marie stage.
Do you expect Gol to be in the breakaway then?
I mean, if Hindley starts jumping, then Santi and all the other guys should jump, right? Like, then it's...
Yeah. Well, he was quite a bit behind, though.
I think it's a great finish for Ben Healy. So Ben Healy also is climbing very, very well in the Puy-Marie stage. So Healy will jump, and for sure he will go on the break if he'll try jump.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Lascano? Urqueta Saison fits him.
True, Lascano, yeah. So
I'm going for Lascano.
Okay. I think Poggy will take it. But if not, then I'll take Santi from the break.
Well,
Do you think
if it's going to the Peloton, I'll go for Poggy as well.
Nah, you said
if we can have both, we'll take both. Eh?
you said Carlos Rodriguez.
I didn't say that. The stage is
Christian,
hard enough.
You said Christian Rodriguez.
Oh God.
And gaps, what are we thinking?
Pitcock break. False.
I saw that story in the press about Ineos coming in different cars to the race.
Oh yeah. Thomas as well.
Don't know about
in
that.
a different car. I agree with you on that. Anyway, what were you saying? Sorry.
Oh, you think gaps or like Remco, Poggy, Jonas? Remco dropped, Poggy solo.
Remco maybe coming back in the last 3 kilometers.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think Remco comes back, right? Because if Remco's got a hope that Jonas keeps the wheel of Pogacar, and then on the 5% they surplus, and then Remco can stomp back.
Jonas will ride with Poggy on the last 2 kilometers because he knows that if he loses a sprint from Poggy, then Remco will beat him as well at the final and maybe bonus seconds or something.
True, then you lose 2 extra seconds. Fair enough. Okay.
So ideal scenario for me is Poggy winning the sprint for against Vingegaard, getting a little bit of more of a gap before we start the super mountain stages afterwards, where Vingegaard starts knocking back the ice cube and breaking off the ice cube of the gap. It's a metaphor, okay? Take it or leave it.
I understand. And yeah, this is the first of 2 hard mountain stages. The high mountains are really coming. We're here to the Pyrenees. I can't wait to watch. If today's stage is anything to go by, that if you give these guys some HC climbs, they're going to go crazy because they're doing it on medium mountains or rolling hills the last couple of days. So it should kick off.
Does Adam Yates' move of today give you any hope that we do see like an Almeida move somewhere? Or
it kind of makes me think more likely, actually.
But Almeida, so
I think there is a chance that Machin gets one of them to do the Soler Angler move.
No.
It's a chance.
That was a stupid move, no? If I remember.
Yeah, he attacked 4 climbs before the Angler, and Robert Hessing just rode 30 seconds behind him. And there were valleys.
So Almeida's done that before as well in the Vuelta.
No, Almeida wouldn't do that, I don't think. He knows that's
2 years ago, he did something similar, I think.
Really?
I think so.
I don't actually think they'll do it. But listen, it could all kick off. This tour has been really exciting and unpredictable, so who knows what will happen. And we'll see who's the strongest in the mountains tomorrow. It should be UAE overall. And I can't wait to watch. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll see you with a recap tomorrow. Ciao.